Morning, everyone.
What, Rabbi?
We're learning Mishnah's Nedarim, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Mishnah 4. Okay, so our Mishnah is going to deal with the following situation. A person made an expression, and he may have meant to say, he may have meant to say it in a way that it's a valid neder, or he may have meant to say it in a way that it's an invalid neder. He made a statement. The statement is not clear what he means. In the way that he expressed himself, did he mean to make a valid neder, or did he mean to make a not valid neder? We know there are ways of expressing that you want to prohibit something, but if you don't do it in the proper way, it's ineffective. If you do it in the proper way, then it is effective. Well, here the situation is going to be where a person makes a statement. Based on the statement alone, we don't know what he means. Now, were he to go ahead and tell us what he meant, okay, we'd accept it. And whatever he told us he meant, we work with that to decide is it effective or ineffective. But then there's going to be a situation where he made a statement. We asked him, what do you mean? And he says, I don't remember. So what do we do then? So the Mishnah is like this. Stam Nedarim lahachmer. An unclear, stam means plain, unspecified. Okay? He made an unclear neder. What happens when you make an unclear neder, and we need to decide whether this neder is effective or not? Lahachmer. We are stringent. That means to say that we will assume that he meant to make a valid neder, meaning he had some kind of intention when he made the neder. We ask him we don't know what he meant. We're going to assume that he meant to express himself in a way that it was a valid neder, because clearly that's what he's really trying to do. Uperushim lahakel. At the same time, if he goes and explains to us what he meant, we can be lenient. If he explains to us that he meant to say in a way that was ineffective, we would accept that. We wouldn't be strict and say, well, maybe you meant the other way, and we would accept it even to be lenient. So now the Mishnah is going to give us examples. Ketzad, how so? Here's the case. Omar Harei Olai, he says, this object, this food, should be upon me, kebatzar maliach, like salted meat. Now, kiyei nesech, or like poured wine, like a libation. Now, he's clearly trying to go ahead and make this forbidden. The question is, though, is he doing it correctly or not? Because by saying it's upon me like salted meat, what is he trying to do? He's talking about, a steak with salt on it? He's not talking about that. He's talking about a sacrifice, right? A carbon is supposed to be salted. That's what Torah says. So when he says that this is upon me, this food should be upon me like salted meat, he may mean, that's another way of saying, it should be upon me like a carbon, which we know that when you want to prohibit something by linking it to a carbon, that it's effective and it becomes forbidden. But the only thing is that there's another way of explaining salted meat as a sacrifice. That's a sacrifice to avodah zarah, to idol worship. That they also used to salt their meat when they sacrifice it to the idol. So maybe he means that this should be forbidden to me like meat offered, like a carbon, like salted meat that was offered to an idol. Now, the difference between them is very big, because if you mean a carbon, we say the rule is that when you want to link something to something forbidden, to make it forbidden to you, it can't be something that's forbidden without declaration. You got to link it to something that is forbidden through your voluntary declaration to make it forbidden, just as you're doing right now. Which is why you can link to a carbon, right? A carbon is something that was permissible, and through your declaration of saying that should be sanctified, and that becomes forbidden to you. So when you want to do the same thing through a neder, you can link it to a carbon. That's fine. But if you're talking about a carbon to idol worship, there's no declaration there to make it forbidden. You offer it to the idol, then it becomes forbidden. There's no declaration involved. So if you link it to that kind of a sacrifice, you may be thinking that you could make it forbidden that way, but it's ineffective. All right? So that is our first example where he says, Hareya like kabasar maliach, this is upon me like salted meat, kiyayanesach, like poured wine. Im shal shamayim nodar. If he meant, meaning he tells us that he meant to make his vow, he's making a vow to something of heaven, meaning he meant to link it to a carbon. Aser. So then the food that he was linking to that, the food that he wanted to make forbidden, will be forbidden. But if he tells us that his intention was to link it to an offering, to idol worship, which means he's linking it to something that's forbidden without declaration, mutter, then the food remains permissible. That wasn't a valid neder. Vimstam, and if we're left unspecified, we're left unclear, he says, I don't remember what I meant when I said it then we say, usher, it's forbidden. Then we say that we assume that when the person made the neder, he made it in a way that it should be effective. That's what we assume. We're seemingly assuming that he knows the difference, and we're assuming that when he did it and he meant to forbid himself, that he would do it in the proper way, in the way that would actually make it forbidden. And therefore, in the case of stam, when it's left unclear, us remains forbidden because we will assume that he meant to do it in the proper way to make it forbidden. That's example number one. Example number two, a person says, Hare alai kecherim. This bread, for instance, this loaf of bread should be upon me like a cherim. Now, what's cherim? Cherim, as we mentioned before, I'll read to you here from the notes. If a person says that something he owns is cherim, it becomes either a gift to the Beis HaMikdash or a gift to the Kohanim, depending on his intent. If it is a gift to the Beis HaMikdash, it's forbidden as hektish. It's another example of sanctifying something. It's another example of taking something permissible and now sanctifying it and making it forbidden for you by means of declaration. If it's a gift to the Kohanim, then listen to this. This is the halacha. It's a halacha to keep in mind. If it's a gift to the Kohanim, then it is hektish only until a Kohen receives it, at which point it loses its sanctity and becomes permitted. Meaning, if you meant chayrim to the Kohanim, meant to be a gift to the Kohen, so until it comes to the Kohen, you're not allowed to benefit from it. Then it has a status like hektish. Then it has a status like something given to the Beis HaMikdash. But once he gets it, permissible. If he wants you to let you use it, you can even use it. It's not like truma. Once he gets it, it's a gift to him, and he gets it. He can let you use it if you want. So here's the case. Harai like a chayrim. The person said this loaf of bread should be upon me like chayrim. All right. Well, what chayrim did he mean? So im kachayrim shal shamayim. If he meant when he said chayrim, it should be like chayrim, like chayrim to heaven, meaning chayrim to the Beis HaMikdash. Then the linkage is a good linkage. You're linked it to something that through declaration becomes forbidden to you, and therefore the food is aser. Let's say his intent was that it should be like the chayrim that goes to a kohen. If that was his intent, then mutter, then it's permissible. Now, why is it permissible? We just said before that when you make something chayrim to kohanim, before it goes to the kohen, it's actually forbidden to have benefit from. And that came because of your declaration that it should be chayrim to the kohanim. So it would seem to be just like a carbon. Why do we say it's permissible? The answer is because, as we said before, once it gets to the Kohen, then it's permissible. And when a person says or means chayrim of kohanim, that means already like he got it. They're thinking already about when he got it. They're not thinking about the step before. They're thinking about the step when he actually gets it, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to give it to the Kohen. So their intention is, their thoughts are already on the chayrim when it's in the Kohen's hand. Of course, the halacha is there's a stage in between before a Kohen actually gets it, it's going to be forbidden. But their thoughts when they make a chayrim kohanim, which does take effect, is when the chayrim gets to the Kohen's hand. At that point, it's permissible, which means that when he was making the linkage of what he's trying to forbid, this loaf bread he's trying to forbid, he's linking it to something permissible. Therefore, it remains permissible, the loaf of bread. Vim stam, and if it's unclear, what did he mean? Aser, then the bread is forbidden. Because then we assume that since he meant to make it forbidden, we assume that he meant to make it forbidden in the effective way, in the halachically effective way, and not in the way that it wouldn't be effective. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos. We will continue Mitzvah Shem to finish next week.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now the word cherem.
We use it in